We haven't run an ad in a dozen years. I found that the best way to sell your product is to stop talking about your product, which is so counterintuitive. And a mentor of mine said that to me. And I'm just like, are you crazy? And I just kept thinking, well, we'll try this for a few months, and if it doesn't work, we'll go back to carnival barking. It worked incredibly well.
Hey there, I'm Sadaf Bainan, and this is Pod Junction Podcast, the show where business leaders share how they use podcasting and story-driven marketing to grow, connect, and build their brands. We also explore the smart marketing moves that can make your podcast even more powerful. Today, I'm joined by Mike Konrad, an entrepreneur of over 30 years, the author of The Reluctant Entrepreneur, and the host of not one, but two podcasts, Reliability Matters and The Reluctant Entrepreneur. Mike, welcome. It's so good to have you here.
Thanks, Sadaf. It's very great to see you.
Mike, let's start with your first show, Reliability Matters. Why did you decide to launch it?
Well, the story, I'm gonna go in the Wayback Machine and time travel a little bit. The business that I founded 33 years ago is we build equipment within the electronics manufacturing space, nerdy stuff, and I was not a business person. I was not an entrepreneur. I kind of fell into it. It was the only way I could get a product that I had designed to the market. No one else would do it. So hence the term reluctant entrepreneur. But I was a marketer at heart. I was just a sales guy. I could sell anything to anyone. And I loved the whole idea of marketing. When I traveled on an airplane, before the internet, I would buy magazines at the airport store, and usually news magazines or auto magazines or something, but I would read all the ads first. And that's what interested me. And then when I got bored, if it was a very long flight, then I'd start reading the articles. But I was very interested in advertising and marketing and the art of persuasion and all of that. So the best, when you start a business, you have to do 2 things you love and 99 things you hate, right? And you're not good at. But the stuff I loved was marketing and sales. And we were obnoxious advertisers. We were terrible. In hindsight, we were terrible. Yeah. We exhibited in about 12 or 13 trade shows a year. We had magicians and waterfalls and video games and all these tricks in our booth just to attract attention. And our advertising was obnoxious. And I'm exaggerating only slightly when I say our ads said something like, "We're the best, everyone else sucks, buy from us," right? And we would parade out all the attributes of our machine, the horsepower rating of the pump, the CFM rating of the blower, the wattage of the heaters, and no one cared, but we cared. So, we were the best. And we gave away all the swag in our booth, at shows, and we did everything we could. We were what I like to refer to as high-tech carnies. We were the carnies, the barkers at a carnival, getting you to, waste money trying to win a $2 bear or something, stuffed bear. We were terrible. And then one day we were at a trade show, and I had rented a giant waterfall, but not just any kind of waterfall. It was 16 feet high, 30 feet wide. And instead of dropping sheets of water, like a stream of water, like a waterfall, it had thousands of little nozzles at the top. And it was like a giant inkjet printer. It dropped little droplets of water in a controlled fashion so that words and images fell from the sky. It was really cool. And I think I spent $50 or $60 or $70,000 renting that, for a 3-day show. Wow. And I was proud of it. And we had all of our equipment in the booth. The morning the show opened, all of our equipment was in the booth. And we intentionally put wheels on our equipment so that we could wheel it in and out of the booth without having to, hire all the union labor to do it for us. And someone came up, this is back in the day, before camera phones and all that. So someone came up, or good camera phones anyway. So someone came up with their 35 millimeter camera and said, "Hey, is it okay if I take a picture of your waterfall? This is the most amazing, booth I've ever seen. And I'm just like, oh, good job, Mike. That was a nice vote of confidence for all the money I spent. I'm like, absolutely, you can take a picture. Then he looked at the equipment, noticed the wheels, and he said, is there any way you can just move your machines out of the way so that I can just get the waterfall? And Sadaf, it hit me like a sledgehammer over the head. It's like, what am I doing? We don't sell waterfalls. We have nothing to do with waterfalls. And it was just a gimmick. And the gimmick was getting all the attention. No one cared what was in front of the waterfall, our products that we were trying to sell. And it just hit me that day, that very instant, that we have to change what we're doing. We're just loud and obnoxious. And the only people that are really hearing us are ourselves and no one else. So after that show, that was the last show we exhibited in for about 10 years. We said, okay, we got to do things differently. We canceled all of our ad contracts in the various industry trade magazines. And we thought, okay, we got to do something else. We had a lot of energy going into advertising and marketing. We need to change it. And I'm guilty of coining phrases, which I later learned have already been coined by others. But the phrase I came up with, which was not mine originally, I guess, was conscious marketing. We have to do things a little bit differently. We have to connect to our customers on a completely different level, not the level we were attempting to connect, with before. And that would involve education because in our industry, there's a specific problem in the electronics industry that all the electrical engineers are well aware of. And most of the people who should be our customers know they have a problem, but they don't know what the root of that problem is. They don't really have that causation. And we know what the problem is. But if we just advertise our machine, it doesn't land because they don't connect our machine as a solution to their problem. They don't understand their problem. So we decided to pretty much instantly start building a campaign of education. And then I started realizing the best way to do that is to create authority because, you don't just believe everything you hear. So we need to start building authority. How do we do that? So we started hosting technical workshops, 100% non-commercial technical workshops, concentrating on the problem and the best practice solutions to those problems, which happen to be our equipment and others like it, not just us. But we didn't talk about our equipment. We didn't even show pictures of our equipment. It was all practical best practice advice, very technical. And then we started doing webinars. Back in the day, I think there was only one webinar platform out there, and that was GoToMeeting. And back in those days, it was absolutely awful. Half your attendees fell off. They couldn't keep a connection. We had a hard time keeping a connection. It's low resolution, but we were doing it. And we called it Tech Tuesdays, and we did one Tuesday every month. We've been doing that now for like 15 years. And then we started hosting workshops. I talked about we did workshops, live workshops. We did webinars. And then I started, I always, when I refer to trade shows, I refer to downstairs and upstairs at trade shows. All shows have this. Downstairs are the booths, the exhibits, where all the carnival barkers are, all trying to sell their wares, give away swag, all this stuff. And then upstairs, I was never interested before in upstairs. Upstairs is where the technical conference goes. That's where people go to learn and seek solutions to problems. I abandoned downstairs, which till today I still miss. I still miss that carnival, atmosphere. But I started speaking much more regularly at every conference that would accept me as a speaker. And so between the speaking gigs and the webinars and the workshops, I started writing a lot of papers. I published a couple of very small booklets, really, on best practices for our industry. And then eventually I started a podcast called Reliability Matters. And that was strictly about reliability of electronics. And I would interview subject matter experts along that line, and they would educate me and my audience on best practices within their level of expertise. And all these years later, that's been about 10 or 12 years now that we've been doing this education approach, this value-added approach. I managed to build some authority within the space, the electronics industry. And people now reach out to me and ask me technical questions on things I'm not involved in. I mean, I don't want to say I'm a go-to resource. I'm just one of several go-to resources now. But we had to earn the trust of our audience that we're not there to sell them stuff. Now, I say that a little disingenuously because obviously this is an alternate approach to marketing. It is a different form of marketing. It's marketing through creating value and education and making true connections, intellectual connections, emotional connections, et cetera. And it is a very, I've realized, very savvy way of marketing, but we don't do it with the intent of getting an order. What we do is, the way I describe it to my kind of civilian friends who aren't in marketing or aren't in this electronics industry, is if you go back to the steam engine, the steam locomotive back in the day, there were basically two employees up front, in the engine area. The engineer who drove the train, moved it forward, moved it back, ran the brakes, all that, and the fireman who shoveled coal into the furnace. And, that fireman didn't know which lump of coal took the train from mile 1 to mile 2. All the fireman knew is that shoveling coal into the furnace built energy. Coal is energy. Energy created heat. Heat boiled the water. Water turned to steam. Steam moved the train. And it began with the energy. Without that energy, the train wouldn't move. And I liken all the various educational arms that we have, the podcasts, the webinars, the lectures, the books, the technical papers, white papers, things like that, are all lumps of coal. They all produce energy, and they move our little train down the track. I can't tell you which order resulted from which lump of educational coal that we put out there. I just know it works. So that's how we got into this space, this kind of headspace, and this sea change of the way we communicate with not just customers, but to our industry. Yeah. And that's worked exceptionally well. We haven't run an ad in a dozen years. I think we've exhibited at 4 shows in a dozen years, or 10 years at least.
Yeah.
And now when we do shows, it's really about education. I'm upstairs the whole time. My team is downstairs. Yeah. And we're not there to, our focus is not there to sell machines. We bring machines, obviously, because that's who we are. But we're there to educate. And we're there to meet with our current customers and hopefully future customers and vendors and editors and, the trade press and colleagues. And when we put the focus on that kind of more holistic approach, a wider approach, we sell machines, but I think we would sell machines if we weren't there. So we're there for a different, our priorities are a little bit different, and they're a higher octave, kind of higher elevation, much broader set of priorities than just stamping badges and collecting names and getting purchase orders. Those days are thankfully behind us.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Mike. That's really helpful, and also really cool to see how your business has progressed especially over the last decade or 12 years or whatever it was. And love how you changed your approach based on the fact that actually what you were trying to sell wasn't actually really landing because it wasn't solutions based. What impact did reliability matters have on your credibility or business results that you didn't necessarily expect 10 years ago?
A huge impact. in a number of different ways. Probably the greatest impact was a much wider audience who got to know who I am. And that follow the program, that follow the show, that subscribe to the show, that download the show. I'm in a very niche industry.
Yeah.
We're within the electronics industry is huge, but we're in a very small corner of the electronics industry in terms of the types of products we make. Our products don't make anything. They don't put ingredients into our product and out pops a circuit board, right? We're not that. Our products make our customers' products more reliable. So it's value added. It's not really part of the manufacturing. It doesn't put components on boards. It doesn't solder boards. It doesn't test boards. What it does is it makes them more reliable through a very specific process. So it's all value added. And for that, you need a lot of education. But I found that the best way to sell your product is to stop talking about your product, which is so counterintuitive. And a mentor of mine said that to me. And I'm just like, are you crazy? That makes no sense. That's stupid. Come on. I'm a carnival barker at heart. And you can't tell this salesperson, who lives for sales and marketing to stop talking about their product. But she was right. And that comes with a lot of caveats. It's not just stop talking, don't say anything ever on any subject. It's, before you earn the right to be trusted, to be respected, for people to place value in what one says, one needs to establish authority first and trust. And it made sense after the fact as I started doing it. I was so frustrated with the way we were doing it. We made the change, but I wasn't completely sold on this is the right change. And I just kept thinking, well, we'll try this for a few months. And if it doesn't work, we'll go back to carnival barking, we'll bring the waterfall back. But it worked incredibly well. As I said earlier, we haven't advertised in any traditional format in a decade at least. And sales are growing and growing and growing. And most importantly, people, kind of addressing your question, people recognize who I am. And I don't mean that's important for me. It's important that when I talk, engineers in our space are listening because they know I'm a safe source of reliable, accurate technical content. And I don't come across as trying to sell them something. I don't, speak through a filter of how many people are going to buy my machine. I don't care about that. At least in that moment, I don't care about that. My goal is to transmit information that's accurate, that's beneficial for the industry, and that's valuable. And I've gained a reputation for doing that. And in our space, there's a number of podcasts in our space, most of which are produced by the trade magazines, most of which are interviewing their advertisers, most of which get very commercial. So it doesn't take much to stand out in our field anyway. And if someone does, and there are a few people now that now have podcasts in our space that think like me and not just trying to, hawk a product. So it's growing, but it's, it's a long journey. As you know, you don't just start a podcast. I remember when I recorded episode 1, I'm literally, at that point, we weren't on video, it was just audio. And I'm talking into a microphone knowing absolutely nobody is listening. Zero. Because no one knows I'm going to do this, right? So I'm talking to an audience of one, which is me, and there's no one out there. And then, the second episode, maybe I had one follower, maybe it was my wife or my mother, or a good friend. And then, you just do it. And then the third, and then you just do it again, and then you just do it again. And then eventually, it's like watching grass grow. From Monday to Tuesday, nothing happens. But somehow by the next Monday, your grass is too long, right? It's just one of those things. You can't see it happen, but it does happen over time. So that the confidence started to build up. And then eventually, I would be at a conference speaking. I'd be in an elevator, at night, going to my room, and someone would be in the elevator and they would just look at me and go, you're the guy. I'm like, the podcast guy? Yes, you're the podcast guy. And that felt so good, that I love your podcast. I love episode number, 12 or 112 or whatever the number is. And I don't remember what episodes those were, but it's a really good feeling to know that not only is it good for my business, it's good for the industry. Yeah. And, there's something about, I've long believed when you have a company that the company needs to be greater than the sum of its parts. You need to make a difference in the world. You need to make something better, right? And this podcast and others like it, not just me, but others like it, that provide real value, that provide education, that provide solid advice, best practice. We make our industry better, and we make the day-to-day life of our viewers and listeners better because we provide advice they maybe didn't know. And, all of a sudden, a light bulb goes off and go, now I understand. And then their products get better. So it's a good feeling. And watching the sales soar and the profits roll in is also a very good
That's
feeling.
always a good thing.
I'm not bypassing that at all.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's clear that your podcast has such a strong impact on, as you said, not just your business, but also the industry. And you're able to educate, and you're also able to build your authority while you're doing it. And also going back to what you said about what your mentor shared with you, it sounds like taking her advice was a really important decision for you.
Yeah, and it was a leap of faith because I refer to my mentor, and she does not like this term, but I refer to her as Yoda. It's the best way to describe her, because not from a physical attribute standpoint, thankfully, but the stuff she says is very abstract, and it doesn't seem to make sense in the moment. But one thing she taught me, which I've kept with me all these years, is if I hear something that just sounds a little nutty to me, she taught me just consider the possibilities. So I would, younger me would just go, oh, that's stupid. Next, move on. And I would just reject it and not think about it again. And she taught me to consider the possibilities. And if it doesn't make sense today, okay, stick it on a shelf in your head and just have a place for it. You don't have to adopt it until it makes sense. And 100% of the time, maybe a few months later, maybe a few years later, all of a sudden, I go through the shelf in my head and I go, oh my God, this would be perfect right now. This is now it makes sense. I just needed more context and time and maturity and wisdom and all those things. And I can't think of a single suggestion that she's made over the years that has not ultimately made sense. So she just sees things from a different perspective. Yeah. And, I can't see the forest from the trees. I'm in the weeds, right? So she's kind of way up on the crow's nest and seeing over the horizon. And I'm not there. So I've learned to trust the process, her process, the process, whatever the process is. Yeah. I've learned to trust it because it just works and it's never failed me. And so we just keep doing it. And if things change, we'll change along with it. Yeah. But at the moment, and for the last decade or so, we've just embraced more and more of that process of creating value, of becoming an authority, of having our goal to educate, not to sell, not entirely to sell, but that comes. And I've now embraced the process and live it, and it just, at least for my business, I can't say it would work for everyone. I think it would work for everyone. I can't see why not. Yeah. But it certainly worked for me. But it is hard to tell people, cancel your ad contracts, quit going to shows, not quit going to shows, quit doing shows the way you're doing shows, right? It's more, go to the show, get a booth, get in front of potential customers, but just broaden the goal. The goal isn't just to, it's not a dating app. You're not speed dating. That just doesn't work. And so many exhibitors at shows, basically have the speed dating approach. And I think today's younger millennial Gen Z type consumer, they're not like me. I did not grow up with the internet. I was 4 years into my business before the internet came out, and before we even had a website. And we were telexes and very, very, very early faxes and U.S. mail. That's how we communicated. And running ads, was the only way we can get our product in front of someone, or exhibiting at a trade show. Those were the only venues. And I've come to learn that the younger generations specifically, they grew up with screens. And so they research their own solutions, and they look for influencers. I don't mean TikTok, Kardashian type influencers, but authority-based influencers. They get their information on their own. They don't wait for a salesperson to come by with line cards in their trunk and take them to lunch and expect a purchase order. Almost no company now even has a visitor lobby that you can go into. You need a key. You need a card to even open the front door. They don't see salesmen the way they did when I was younger. So I think the way we're doing it, and others, this conscious marketing approach was an alternative way to do business. Now I don't think it's an alternative way. I think it's pretty much the only way to do business, because how are you going to connect with young people who have no interest in connecting with you? They want to do their research. You have to give them stuff to research that's accurate. Then they connect. So now I get, people reach out to me all the time. When I'm off this program, I'll have 10 emails of someone wanting me to answer a question I don't know how to answer, but I know who knows, right? So I can connect. But it just builds the trust. And I don't think any amount of advertising can do that. Traditional advertising.
Yeah, no, you're right. Mike, you've also got a second podcast, The Reluctant Entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I call it my big podcast and small podcast, relatively speaking. The bigger one is reliability, and the other one is and the one I enjoy the most actually is on this subject, on entrepreneurship. I started that because I realized, so I have, what I call civilian friends. You have civilian friends who are not podcasters themselves, right? And I have friends who are not podcasters, and I have friends that don't own a business. And I'll start talking about my business, and my friends are good for about, 90 seconds of attention. And then they're not interested. They just go, oh, my phone's ringing, I got to go get it, or whatever.
Yeah.
Put 2 entrepreneurs or 10 entrepreneurs in a room, and that's all we do. We just talk about our businesses. And we love to talk about our business, and we love to hear about their business. It's like going to the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, sitting down with some old World War II vets, drinking a beer, hearing all their foxhole stories, right? Yeah. They can talk for hours amongst each other. Outside of the VFW, probably no one wants to listen, right? But so I wanted to get a venue together where entrepreneurs can talk to entrepreneurs. And probably more importantly, when I built my business, I made every mistake one can possibly make. I was not a business person. And my goal, when I wrote the book, The Reluctant Entrepreneur, was to candidly explain every mistake I ever made. And more importantly, what I learned from every mistake I ever made. It's not a how-to book. It's a how not to book, right? And I, for years, had this guilt, and I would just be down on myself. Like, I consider myself pretty bright, and I'm like, how stupid could I be? I must be the world's worst business person, right? Because I just keep making these stupid mistakes. And, we were like a cat with 900 lives. We should have been out of business dozens and dozens and dozens of times, but, through miracle and grit, we stayed in business. And when I talk to other entrepreneurs, they feel the same way. And then I started realizing, wait a minute, this is, yes, it was a failure on my part, but it really was a learning experience. It was the ingredients that I needed, that formed a change agent to cause me to change. And every entrepreneur goes through that. Richard Branson went through that. Sir Richard Branson, who owns hundreds of companies. They all go through it. We all go through it. And it's not something to beat yourself up over. It's something to learn from. And the more I realize that I'm not in this alone, everyone else is making very similar types of mistakes. Maybe I can create this medium where entrepreneurs can get together and realize, they went to the same school. They experienced the same curriculum of learning how to build a business as I did. And we all did. The same but different. Yeah. And those are the two main reasons I started the podcast. I have nothing to sell, I don't use it to sell my book, although the title is the same. But it really is just more of understanding people's journeys, pulling out what's unique, what learning moments can my audience gain from. Maybe my audience is experiencing the exact same thing at that exact same time. And I've gotten feedback from my audience. I said, it's like you were in my head. How did you know? That's exactly what I'm going through. Yeah. And to me, that's why I do it. I do it because I enjoy talking about entrepreneurship. I enjoy talking about business and marketing and things like that. And I've been doing it for, more than 3 decades now. So, and I'm still here. So, something went right. And I just want to, right now, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics states that 80% of all businesses ultimately fail. That's just a statistic from our government. And so 80% fail, 20% make it past 15 years. Why do 80% fail? I think 80% fail because of very similar reasons. Because the owners, the founders, the skills they had to grow the business from 1 to 2 fail them from 2 to 3. Then maybe they polish up their skills and then they can take the business to 4. And then they run out of skills. And then at some point they fail to either adapt to new skills or acquire new skills through hiring. And then they fail. So they're good, they're good for a 5-year business and then it fails. They're good for a 10-year business and it fails. And according to the government, 80% of businesses are good for 15 years or as long as 15 years. And I'm thinking, I think we can change that 80-20 to 20-80 if we understand the common denominator reasons businesses fail and the common denominator reasons business succeed. And if we can just get a little preview of that before we experience the failure, maybe a few businesses will shift to new skill sets or adapt new skills or bring in new skills. Maybe we can realize we don't know what we don't know. And maybe we can realize that what got us from A to B will kill us from B to C. Yeah. And, so I wish I had heard that. Maybe I wasn't meant to. Maybe I was meant to learn it. Maybe everyone's meant to learn it. Maybe no one will hear the show or watch the show and all of a sudden the business survives. But those are the primary motivations for that endeavor, is just to kind of pay it forward, pay it back. And, if it helps a business owner or someone thinking of running a business or someone working in a cubicle, as a, 1040 employee or W-2 employee, fine. That'd be great too.
Yeah. One of the things I love about your story is that both podcasts are very different, and yet they both build that credibility, visibility, and trust. How have you seen that ripple effect play out in your business or even your personal brand?
Less in my personal life because both are very niche podcasts, and the majority of my friends don't own a business and aren't in the electronics assembly industry. So, but it has landed incredibly well on my professional life. Ironically, even the Entrepreneur Podcast has landed in my business life, mainly just because it just adds more weight and more credibility. Even though I'm not talking about electronics, reliability on the Reluctant Entrepreneur Podcast, it's the number of times they get it, if they follow me on LinkedIn or something, the number of times they get a notification with my name on it is higher than if I didn't do this. So for the people who follow me, I'm a little bit more front of mind, for better or for worse, than I would be if I didn't produce content. And I do produce a lot of content. I also produce a whole tips and tricks series, little 10-minute maximum length best practice tips. That's specifically in the genre of electronics that we're in. But all those things just provide that little red dot notification. Oh, there's Mike again. And I'm also on the board of directors for one of our industry's big trade associations, and I'm their director of marketing and communications, and or their VP of marketing and communications, and so I also produce a lot of content for them as well. But all of it just, I don't know, it just puts the thumb on the scale of credibility, and whether it's credibility to bring me in as a keynote speaker on business, or a speaker at a conference, or chairing a conference, whatever the case may be, it just puts the finger on the thumb on the scale, and it just adds to what people's perception of my credibility is, and that can't hurt.
For sure.
There are things I could do to affect my reputation that would not be credible, and we used to do that, but I like it this way a lot better than, if Mike's talking, he's probably carnival barking again. Yeah.
Yes. So Mike, beyond your podcast, I know you mentioned you've got other coal as well, other forms of energy that you pour into your business, and you talked about workshops, webinars, speaking. I know you've written a book. How do these fit into the bigger picture?
I'm a big believer, as I said earlier, that you have to make a difference in this world. I'm not on this earth to sell machines to the electronics industry. That's not my purpose of being here. My purpose of being here is to somehow make the world a better place. That sounds grandiose. I don't mean, I'm not Gandhi. I'm not Mother Teresa, right? But anyone can just do something to make the world a little better than, leave it a little better, in a better shape than you got it. And to me, that plays a big role in my life, is to have a positive influence on somebody or something or some industry or whatever the case may be. And all the stuff that I do, yes, it does fuel my business. Absolutely. I'm not Pollyannish about it, but it's a twofer. It also helps somebody. My technical podcast will help an engineer solve a problem. Maybe I'll be on that airplane that has a circuit board in it that doesn't fail. So I can go back and record another podcast someday. That could help me. Maybe I'm talking to someone who's about to close their business because they think that, they're down on themselves and realize that they think that they can't, they're a failure. And they don't realize that, 2 inches to the left is all you need to be. Just make a little 2 inches to the left change, and you're so close to the prize, you just can't see it. Maybe that will keep them going a day longer, and then they get the big contract. I don't know. I mean, those are things that I hope I have that kind of influence. I don't know if I do. I'll probably never really know. I get anecdotes from time to time from my listeners and viewers. But I don't know. Just pay it forward. Just keep doing it. And in the meantime, sales are, the company is extremely healthy. I'm semi-retired. My My team pays me to stay away, which is it has a great ROI attached to that philosophy. So I still own the company, but my role in the company now is kind of the face of the company, the spokesperson, the person who creates all the content, which they have no interest in doing. They love running a business. They love all the nitty-gritty of running a business. They love the standard operating procedures, the SOPs. They write stuff that I never thought of. I was a terrible business person. Great. Not a bad designer. I invented products that we're selling today, but I had no acumen for business and no desire to have an acumen for business. And I wasn't very good at it. They are great at it. So it's a win-win. I do stuff that they don't have an interest in doing. And I think I do it well. And they definitely do what they do well. I know I didn't do it that well. So we don't get in each other's way. It's a complementary relationship. And my team is amazing. And I'm so grateful for them because I don't have to go do the 99 things I hate just to do the one thing I like. Yeah. So I can just do the one thing I like and they handle all the other stuff. So everyone's happy. It's win-win.
Yeah. Your team sounds very balanced.
It is very balanced. They are the dream team. And, we sought out to build a dream team. And I think when I first heard one of my people talk about, the dream team, I'm like, okay, that's just a buzzword. No, they actually built a dream team of people who love their work and feel connected to our industry and to something greater than our industry. They believe that what our company is doing is making the world a better place in our way. And they believe that and they're proud of that. And you can't buy that. There's no amount of money you can pay someone that would buy that connection to something greater. And they have it. So it's my job
That's
is
fantastic.
My job is just to build the content and go forth and make it happen. And they do.
That's great. Well done to you.
Thank you.
Mike, if you had to describe your overall marketing philosophy, how would you describe that? What would that be?
Build authority, build credibility, connect on a level that resonates with your audience, and stop talking about your products. Stop talking about your company in an exclusive content. Look over the horizon. And I don't compare us to Nike, but Nike's a great poster child for an example. I can't think of ever seeing a Nike ad or commercial that talked about arch support or the design of the eyelets on the laces or even style. They celebrate athletes. Some of their ads, you don't even see a shoe, but they celebrate athletes and athleticism. Red Bull doesn't talk about its refreshing tastes. First of all, I don't think it's refreshing taste, but they don't talk about what it tastes like.
Yeah.
They celebrate extreme sports. Coca-Cola kind of connects at an emotional level. It's when they came up with the polar bear ad at Christmas time, they connected. They don't have anything to do with polar bears, but somehow they made this emotional connection. I've read that when in the 30s or 40s, maybe, Coca-Cola wanted to beef up their sales in the wintertime because they were selling refreshing Coca-Cola, during the summer. But people in the winter, didn't want refreshing it doesn't land. Yeah. So they hired a advertising firm out of New York I think it was out of Wisconsin, to create an image of Santa Claus, which was dressed in their image in red, Coca-Cola red. Prior to that, there was no universal color of Santa's outfit, right? If Pepsi had come up with an ad, Santa could have been blue today, right? But they connected Christmas with Coca-Cola because they had Santa drinking a Coca-Cola. and they added some weight to Santa, and they made him jolly. They put red cheeks on him, and they created this image of Santa Claus, which has remained intact today. The prior images of Santa Claus was all over the map, from scary, almost like pedophile-looking Santa Clauses, from the 1800s, old Saint Nicholas, to the modern version. That was Coca-Cola wanting to connect on an emotional level to society, and they changed. They had a huge influence on a major holiday. In fact, before Coca-Cola ran that campaign, Thanksgiving was the biggest holiday. No, not Thanksgiving. Another holiday was the biggest holiday in the U.S. at that time. Easter. Easter was by far the most celebrated religious holiday in the U.S. It became Christmas after the Coca-Cola campaign. Did it have anything to do with it?
Yeah.
I think it did. I don't think we know for sure. But, basically advertising anthropologists all believe that story. Yeah. So it just, that's what I want to do. That's a very long answer to your very short question. But I want to be able to connect on a different level and influence our industry in a positive way.
So does this tie back to what you said at the beginning of the episode about conscious marketing?
Yeah, I think conscious marketing is to connect on an intellectual or an emotional level, on a value-added level. And then that leads to another thing I coined, which I found out was already coined, which I called guided discovery. And that's where we provide the data and the facts in a non-biased, non-commercial manner. And then the consumer connects the dots. So we just provide all the information. We don't make the claim, we are the solution to your problem. We say, this is our understanding of the problem you're having. And they go, oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm having. Right. And here's the cause of those problems. And here are best practice mitigation strategies. Not our stuff, just best practice mitigation strategies. If one does this and this and this, that addresses that issue, that solves that problem. And then they go, you guys do stuff like that. Yeah, well, and others. But, that's, they come up with a solution, guided discovery. So we're their tour guide. We're their docent, in a museum. We're the ones taking them around, showing them all the history, all the science behind it. And then they come up with their own conclusion, which hopefully is us. It doesn't have to be, but hopefully it's us. And it usually is. But they have to do it. One thing I've learned today is that young people, and you're getting old when you start any conversation with kids these days. I'm now officially my father. But young people today are not customers. They join tribes. And look at the most successful companies on the planet. I'll say Apple, because I'm a Mac guy, but I'll say Apple, even though they're less so today. But how many times do you go in front of an Apple store 3 days before the newest iPhone's coming out, and there are people camping because they want to be the first 100 people to get it, right? They could wait a week and get it shipped to them for free, but they're super fans, and they join the Apple tribe. They wear the merch, they advertise. Nike, same thing. People wear the swoosh on their baseball cap or their shirt. They join the tribe. It's not just a customer. They join a tribe. Patagonia. There are a number of brands where people are joining tribes. And once someone joins your tribe, once they think they discover you through guided discovery, it's their choice. They're like, oh my God, I found the solution. It's XYZ company. They've got this, that'll do it. They will fall on their sword over your brand. They will buy your merch or wear your merch. They will fight with management to get your product approved and get the purchase order signed. We don't have to do that. They do that because they've joined your tribe. And if we can get to that level of fierce loyalty with our customers, which we have in the last 10 years, not before, then our customers now become partners with us. when we were leading on just all the obnoxious advertising and we'll beat any price and, we'll discount aggressively so our competitors don't get it, we attracted the worst customers, the most toxic customers. We attracted people who only led with price. We sell very sophisticated machines. They require care and maintenance, which they would do none of. So they would have issues with their machine, blame us, force us to fix it even out of warranty for free, or pressure us to do so. And we were so afraid of getting a bad reputation, we would do it. So we made almost no money, if any, on the sale. And then we lose money on the support.
Yeah.
And that's the type of customer we attracted. But, Hansen's law of solubility for your chemical engineer viewers and listeners, Hansen's law of solubility is like attracts like. And I think like attracts like in many ways. When we put forward a higher octave, education-based, value-based, accurate, non-commercial information, we attract a different type of client. We don't attract people who are just leading with price. We attract people who are seeking a solution to a problem which they believe we have. And at that point, I don't want to say any price will do, but the price is five steps down on their priority. It's there, but it's not number one. And they maintain their equipment. They communicate with us about product improvement suggestions and things like that. They become our partners, all because we change the way we do our outreach. We are attracting an entirely different level of customer that in some instances join our tribe and feel part of our tribe and want to see our tribe succeed and want to tell people they're part of our tribe. It's just an amazing 180-degree shift in how we put out the message and the results of what we attract with that message. You get what you put out. And if we put out obnoxious stuff, we attract obnoxious customers. If we put out education, high-level stuff, we attract people seeking answers, people wanting to be educated, and people with a higher level of partnership than we did before.
Yeah, no, that's you're absolutely right. I love what you're saying. It's very good. Mike, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been really great. And I really love actually how your journey shows that podcasting isn't just about downloads, but it's very much about building that trust, that authority, and a long-term presence. So thank you so much for being so candid today with your story.
Well, thank you, Sanap, for inviting me on the show and for what you do. I mean, you're doing the exact same thing, right? You have a business, you work in a business, and this, at no point have we talked about your business and or specifically mine, so because that part doesn't matter. What matters is you're doing what you're doing, gaining your authority and helping others in this space, and kudos to you. So keep it up.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. If people want to find out a little bit more about you and check out your work, including both your shows, Reliability Matters and The Reluctant Entrepreneur, where should they go to do that?
For Reliability Matters, they can go to reliabilitymatterspodcast.com. And for Reluctant Entrepreneur, they can go to reluctantentrepreneur.podcast.com. Not hard to, if you can remember all those words, then it makes sense. And then just for me, MikeKonrad.com, Konrad with a K.
Cool.
And then my company name, if you have, fellow nerds like me in your audience that want to know what in the electronics world does Mike do? It's Aqueous Tech, aqueous like meaning water, AQUEOUS, aqueoustech.com. And that'll suck you down the technical rabbit hole.
Awesome. To those listening, thank you so much for being here. All the links that Mike has just mentioned will be in the show description. And here's what I hope you take away from Mike's journey. There are many ways to grow a business, but the ones that last are rooted in trust, visibility, and a willingness to evolve. So thanks for listening, and bye for now.